Hello and welcome to our podcast, The Blossoming Unity. We are Dennis and Nicole, and we are here to introduce you into the conversation about different spiritual perceptions, techniques, and methodologies in order for you to have inspiration for your day-to-day life. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, everyone. Good day, good evening, good wherever you are in whatever time zone you're hanging out. How are you?
Very well. Very well. Very relaxed, very focused, very driven, very creative. Just allowing the creative flow go, just having at it. And it's not tense.
It's
It's
amazing.
very relaxed, creative juices.
How do
Like,
you Dennis and I sometimes speak before our podcast, and I was asking him today, like, when are you in flow moment? And maybe we can share a little bit. Like, how do you, like, I like to share that.
well, I mean, just make a decision. I know that's easier said than done. There was a lot of stuff I had to do to be able to make the decision to act on something and not let anything hinder the decision that I'm making. When something lights me up to do something, I say if I don't act on it within the first 10 to 15 seconds, that's a done deal. I'm not going to act on it again in the same way that spark came. So if I get that spark to do something, I just do it because that flow is happening right there.
And what do you mean by act on it on the first 10 to 15 seconds? I mean, that would mean in like, it depends. You just take a note, or are you like
No, I
you're
do it.
but then it means you're constantly distracted.
No, I'm not distracted. It's creating. There's a space that I open up for creative space. When I open up that space for creative space, and that's so many hours throughout the day, then I act on it within those hours. I'm free to open and be whatever wants to happen in that space.
Yes. Got it.
And is it distracted if you are flowing with it? If you're present with it, are
No,
you distracted?
if you plan the hours, it's not.
Well, even if it's unintentional hours, just acting on it.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think it depends. It depends on your type, and it depends on how open you are. Like, I am as a channel, I'm so open, and I need to be very discerning. Like, I have 1,000 ideas a day. If I would act upon all of them, I would do nothing. I have to be very discerning with what energies I co-create. Like, for me, that was like, for a long time, it was a challenge to do that. And but I think in general, when you're dedicating a certain amount of time to that creation, then I think it's really like, then you can act upon anything that comes up. Like,
Yeah, I tend to do that even if it's not within those time periods as well.
mm.
But it's not in the same way that it would be in those time periods.
Mm.
So let's say we'll say today, okay? I was going for a drive and I had the inspiration, these lyrics started flowing in. And the inspiration to flow with that, if I would have just looked at it and within that term 10 to 15 seconds and I just disregarded it and then tried to come back to those lyrics that were flowing through,
Then it's gone.
that gone. But what I did was I said, hey Google, I need to be careful saying that everything will start activating.
Like, what's going on? Yes, Dennis.
I said leave a note, and then I spoke them out loud, and then it was saved. Now, that same energy for me, when I brought it home and I sat down and I started working with the music behind it, that same energy was there.
Yeah, then you have hooked it in. Hmm.
Mhm.
I totally understand what you mean. I have that a lot. Like I think people can relate to that very well, or I can at least. When you're um waking up, like I have a lot of downloads between 4 and 6 in the morning. Like when I, for example, when I want to write something, an article for Li Vision, or when I um, want to plan something new, or a product that I wanted to offer, or a service that I want to offer. I always work on that during those hours. And then, but then when you like, when I, in the beginning, I had to get used to those type of flows. And it's fascinating, but during the day, if you don't write it down at that time, it's gone. You cannot you can, it's gone. It's just like almost like the muse of creativity. She's passing by and she's trying to kiss you. But when you're like, when you're not able to be kissed at that moment, then she's like, okay, then someone else is doing the job. she's it looks like the universe is looking for people that are doing, that are willing to do the job, and it doesn't matter who's doing it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And multiple people get the same inspiration at the exact same time, and
Absolutely.
it usually ends up going to the people who are the most open to these. That's why very creative thinkers and people who act on bringing in a community to generate or create something,
Yeah.
they end up getting much more creative thought processes. I mean, you can look at Elon Musk. The amount of thoughts that he gets and he acts on them, never not acts on them, just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. But he also has the team around him. So he's allowing that information to come through and then building the team and allowing that to grow from there. And there's a lot of, big creative, what's the word? Pioneers that are getting that information. But there's a lot of people who get the same exact download, if we're going to use that terminology, since it's new agey. But who's going to act on it? Who's going to be the best one? So the people who best fit that category and openness is going to be able to receive that because they're open. They've already opened that channel.
Yeah, and it's also I think the muse is also touching on its openness, but it's also capability. Like Bettina
Mhm.
and I, people when we speak about Li Vision, they're like, "Oh my God, it's amazing! How did you have the idea to do this? And how did that happen?" Like we both say like it could have been us that is doing Li Vision, but it could have been someone else. It just wanted to be created, and it so happened that we both had the capability of doing it and the willingness, and we decided to do it. Like I think it's really important with the creative flow to be very discerning on where do you want to go with it, like because there are endless possibilities, there are endless things that want to be
Mhm.
created on planet Earth. But like you can either be like, okay, I'm just going with whatever comes, but then all of a sudden you're ending up building like a new printer. I don't know, like things need to be created.
Mhm.
Or you're like, okay, this is the part of creation that I want to be in, like deciding with your free will where do you want to maneuver your time space reality and your creation, your life, your purpose. And then you're just doing that. And I think that's in this in this time, it's really fascinating, because when you're having a lot of talent, it's, for me it was always very difficult to decide whether something is for me or I get it for someone else, because I always had those downloads. Like I always was very open. And then I was like, is that mine? Is it not? Like,
Yeah, I've always kind of dabbled in just about everything, and then I dabble in it, master it, and then I put it down, and then I don't touch it again. And then
yeah,
somehow, for some reason, 7 years, 8 years later, it's all, different times it all comes back, and it's like, hey,
yeah.
now show that mastery you had. But there, when I say mastery, I mean in that time, you know, like to the capability in which I wanted the creative flow to go and what I wanted to achieve with that creative flow. And I've had a really easy way of being able to start creative projects and just let them go. And I see a lot of people actually end up getting very, very invested in their creative projects. And because of that investment, they become very attached to it. It's their baby. Of course, it's totally understandable. But when it wants to go in a new direction, that's when the anxiety thoughts start creeping in, the little suffering we give ourselves, fear of what's going to happen. Everything could fall apart. Oh my gosh, why is everything happening this way? So for me, being able to recognize, if something wants to birth into something new, even though it started this way, creating this way, I see the goal, I see how it wants to blossom and all that. I'm nurturing it along the way. And then when it wants to transform to something else, then I just allow it. I take the step back. And I think that's a great thing to do and a great practice to have, for people who may have a little bit too much trouble with letting go of that goal around the creative project and allowing it to blossom into what it needs to be.
I really like Gary V's take on that. Gary V has a very nice perception of that. He says you need a macro plan where you need to be very slow in action, like your macro, the big picture of your next years that you want to have, like needs to be very, like you don't change directions in the big picture
Oh no.
fast.
Right.
You just have your ship maneuvering in the sea of life, and the big picture is like, where do I want to drive with it? Like, where do I want to, it's probably not even driving when you're having a ship, right? What is it?
Uh,
Shipping.
no, no, it's not sailing because it's not a sail ship.
I thought about that. Well,
Sailing?
you're driving the ship, let's keep it that way. And like in the macro, you're slow, like you're not changing the macro very easily. But in the micro, in the day-to-day, you can be fast. You have to be fast. You have to try things, like you stay in the flow, but make sure that this is going always in the direction of the macro. And I really like that take, because that allows you to open up yourself as a creative person, a creator on planet Earth, to experience different types of things. That's why Gary Vee says, like, in your 20s, in your early 30s, try as many things as you can. Like, try the jobs, try the like, do this, do that, like, do whatever you want, but stick to your values. For example, like, have your values set, and then, like, okay, stick to that, but go from this part of the experience to that part of the experience in this value set, and be fast in that. You don't like it, move. Like, who cares? You have plenty of time. And that was my experience also. In, like, I started working when I was 16. And here in Europe, you don't do college, and you can do universities, but this is like, back in the days where I grew up, it was not the majority of people that did that. it was like our system is more like you do an apprenticeship. That means you're working in a company, and while you're doing that, you're going to school like a day a week, and you're having like uh, it's like college but with work experience.
Mm.
And so I did a business administration apprenticeship, and then I did many different jobs until I was like 35. And those jobs allow me now to I gained experiences that I need today to do my job here for Ali Vision, to have to be a better trauma therapist, to also be a better artist, a better writer, because I touch many different things, right? So, no.
Yeah. It makes sense because the big picture, um, moving it slowly and not changing that too often because where attention go, energy flows. And if you're constantly changing direction, you always end up right back where you started,
Yeah.
just going in a damn circle.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people when when it comes around this creative flow, or they get stuck in their macro. That's also what happens a lot. Like, they were like deciding when they were 22 they want their life and go to this direction, and then never ask
Mm,
themselves again, like, is that really where I want to go? Because your value set is different when you're 22 than when you're 35. It's
yeah.
different because you evolve. And maybe sometimes it's also good to like, I like to do once a year, like like an audit almost of my macro values. Like I go and then I'm like, okay, is this still my value set? Is this still where, like, what I want to invest my time in? Do I still think it's the right thing to do? And then uh, am I still like, because you're changing, that's that you're evolving, so life changes around your evolution. So yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Hmm. I like to keep 5 to 10 year goals, but they're very broad. So
Yeah.
there's always room for changing, enhancing, whatever.
Yes.
But the having the short term goals as well. So, I always use my calendar, always, even though I really suck at emails. I'm just saying I really suck at emails, but I'm really great with the calendar. But my calendar has literally everything, anything that needs to be done, but I have it all hooked up through everything where anything happens, it all just goes directly to calendar. So there's never any misses there.
Yeah. I mean,
But
working with you since a couple of months now, like, d- your the quality that you give out in your preciseness of your calendar, like, you're really amazing to work with. Like, it's stunning. It's like really nice. Like, I work with a lot of different people, a lot of different allies, but also like in the past. And I think this is really, it gives the respect and the value to other people's time. Like, I really appreciate that.
mm, it's it's structure
Yeah.
without tying my identity to the structure.
I
Because
really.
structure is important. When you have a solid foundation, then if the wind comes in, or a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit of chaos starts brewing, then there's an easy navigation. It's having everything on the calendar. If something happens, something comes up, then you're able to communicate and delegate between all the things that are going on, and it keeps everything flowing without the added stress of, oh, I missed this, I did do this, all
Totally.
of that. I keep it very stress free, And when you do that internally, it automatically like starts just being a part of your everyday activities. It's like not doing stressful things, not putting stressful chemicals or stressful this or not doing certain things. And it's like that used to appeal to me because I loved being stressed the hell out. I love pulling my hair out. And I didn't know that I was addicted to the stress.
Yeah. But that is a very good one because a lot of people have that one.
Yeah. I don't know, people.
Also, it's also in our society. I mean, let's be honest. In our society, like being stressed is a perception of importance, of self-importance. Like people think they're more important when they act stressed than when they're like just relaxed.
That's also conditioned
Of
behavior as
course.
well. It's like, oh, you don't care because you're not stressed out. You're not putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it. Like
Yes.
when you hear that, you feel, oh, I need to just tense myself up, and then you're trying to control your nervous system to do something that it's not intending to do. So then you're causing more damage, and then it becomes a habit of constantly
Yeah.
constricting and pulling yourself together, basically. And it's not a fun game. You just right here, everyone that's listening, is your body at ease? Because you can still move through life and have easiness in the body. I always add the ness to things because I think it makes it sound more. Mwah.
I agree.
But just notice the parts of your body where you're tense. Are you clenching your jaw? Are your fists balled up? Are you are your thighs all cramped up? Are you putting yourself in a tense position? Now, do you find yourself comfortable in that way? And then when you relax it, do you feel the ease? And you're still able to be there with whatever it is you're doing without all that tension. It's just causing stress to the body.
Yeah.
Do
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
you have anything to add?
I was just thinking about the closed fists and what it means as mudra.
Mm,
It's I think such things are really interesting because it like of course the clenching of the jaw, like in our face we have a lot of like everything is written in the faces, like uh, face reading is one of the most interesting things for me. It's so interesting, and you can see stress and like especially like as a trauma therapist I see a lot of clients one to one, and like when we're going into the work of the trauma you can see like where the energies get stuck. And it's really interesting, in the faces there are moon centers. It's like here in the chin there is the emotional center. So when like a lot of kids had, when you were a kid you had the situation that you were like on a skateboard and you fell like this, or like you had your chin open.
mm,
That's very often when there's a lot of energy that needs to leave the emotional body.
mm,
So and it always happens in around the same age. You never see children when they're 12 and they're having an open chin, and you never see them when they're 4 and they're having an open chin. It's always around 6, 7, 8 years old, and that's where the emotional body is built. So, like it's very interesting. So there's things like that. I'm thinking about things like that, and with the hands, like I had a time where I used to live in Paris. I worked for a huge jewelry company, one of the biggest. No, I think it's the biggest jewelry company that is not a brand. Like, and I used to work for them, and I made a career. I was sent to live in Paris to be a project leader there, and um, to be in Paris for the headquarters here in Switzerland. Like I was Emily in Paris, but Nicole in Paris, but for a jewelry company. And we built the headquarters in France, and I founded the company there for and then the biggest, we opened the biggest jewelry store in the world. So that was my thing. I was there for like a year. And I remember when I used to work there, and I was very stressed. Like I flew every second week back and forth. I worked a lot, and so when I used to wake up in the morning, I woke up in the morning like this. My hands were closed, and I still have that. Like I don't have that often anymore, but there are times also now when my hands, when I wake up in the morning, they're closed. And you see that often in children, in babies. Like they're not waking up like this. Very often they're waking up like that. Like they're like, the stretch and everything. And what you're doing with that is you're cutting your connection to the heavens. Like you're like going within. So if you're making fists, like if you're very tense, that means your system cannot deal with more data, because your hair is like antennas to get the emotional frequencies of people around you. That's why, like when there is too much information, like if you can put something on your head, like a hat or a scarf or anything. That's why when you're meditating and you're like really spacing out, I mean, this is what we do in Kundalini yoga. You're meditating like that, and the energy is a completely different one. So by the way, for the listeners, if you're not having the visual, I just put a scarf on my head.
I can say, but while you're continuing the story, I have noticed a major difference in not having my hair up in a bun on the top of my head, also not having my hair down, and having something over my head. There is a completely different experience for all three of them.
Different story. Like try it at least. I mean, I'm always a big fan of like try and error. Like you like it, good for you. You don't, good for you. Like find out what works for your body, but like start to have a relationship with it. And so your hands as well as your hair are antennas. Your hair is more taking up on the subtlety of people around you and people which are connected to your field. That means people that think of you, that know you, that talk about you, all of that. And your hands are connected to the planets. Like the little finger is Mercury. It's for communication. The ring finger is connected to the sun energy, which is your inner sun, the raw, the masculine energy. This is Saturn. What's this finger called? The
middle finger.
Middle finger. Very good. The middle finger is Saturn finger, is teacher, is obstacles, is a lot of that. Jupiter.
The reason why they people give people the bird, they flick the middle finger at them, they're flicking the Saturn at them. They're teaching it's yeah.
It's so funny, no? It's good to know. Or also like victory. It's like Saturn and Jupiter apart.
The peace sign.
Yes, the peace sign. It's a Saturn and a Jupiter finger, having them apart, and you're suppressing the sun and the Mercury. So like it's very interesting. Like mudras, for me, like I didn't grow up with the Indian culture, but I think mudras are very interesting to study. Like having like also like when you're looking at a lot of politicians, like they're always standing there, they're putting all their fingers together, and then they're building this strange form. It's like a triangle. It's like villain. Like it's really interesting, but you know what it does?
Hey, everyone that's listening to this and hasn't watched this video on YouTube, please watch it on YouTube.
Nicole's villainous. Like, no, but I mean, it's important to know. Like the villains, they always put their hands together like, and then they're like doing a movement with the fingers. But that movement with the fingers, what it does when you're touching all your fingers in your hands, there are many, like in your hands, in your ears, and in your feet. They're the meridian points of the almost the full body. So if you're putting the tips of your fingers together, and then you're moving those, what you're doing is you're connecting your brain hemisphere, and you just think faster. It's like very, like if you have to think fast about something, do this mudra. It's fascinating what it does. It's very fascinating, and it's an internalizing thing. So that's what I was thinking about when you were speaking. Like when you're having your fists closed, that means I'm cutting the connection to the heavens, to the planets, in order to not get more information in order to just stay in what there is. Isn't that? It's very tense, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. For me, the nervous system is the most fascinating thing, because it teaches you everything that you need to know as a human about yourself. Like following the stress level in your nervous system shows you directly where you can do your shadow work. Like I have a lot of clients, they're coming to my practice, and then they're like, the first sentence when I'm like, okay, so welcome, what are we here for, what do you want to do? And then they're like, yeah, I have this and I have that and I have that, but where do we start? I say, let's see, where's the resonance? Like, what's the worst thing that happens in your day-to-day life? And then they're like, I cannot sleep anymore. Okay, good. So let's start with the resonance of you not being able to sleep. Or, I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired. Okay, that's a resonance. Let's start there. Or, my relationships are not working. Okay, that's a resonance. Let's start. The nervous system is showing you directly where to go.
You just got to pay attention.
Yeah, and that's very difficult. I mean, because we're so trained in not feeling what there is. All our society is training us is like to ignore your needs. And this is how you grow up. Like as a child, I mean, you have children, probably you can tell better than I can, but what I saw and see is there's a child. The child doesn't want to eat broccoli. That was random. The child doesn't want to eat broccoli. So I personally think children know exactly what they need. I'm 100% convinced that the cravings that you have show you where you have to maneuver and what you need to give your body in order for your body to be good. And I believe children do know that very well about themselves. So now you can say, no, it's not good that you don't want to eat the broccoli and instead want to eat the pasta or sweets. And I will not give you what you need. You need broccoli. You need to eat that. That's better for you. And I understand why parents think that this is a very smart decision to do that. I do understand, because they think they're smarter than their children and they have to teach them certain things. I do understand that. And that's true to a certain extent. But for example, very interesting enough, they're like children, their body has a completely different functionality than the bodies of grown-ups, of parents. Completely different. They're not mini grown-ups. They're something different. Their hormonal functions, their their glandular system, everything is different than with grown-ups. That it changes when you're having the teenage years where you have the sexual internal revolution. Then it changes to being grown-ups, but before that they're children, and their body functions differently. And so in a child's body, before they had their puberty, there are two main hormones which need to be balanced in order for the child to be balanced. And one of the I don't remember the name. I have to maybe look it up one day. But one of the hormones, when they're out of balance, one possible way of bringing them back into balance is sugar, is sweet food. My godson, he's 5. He's constantly eating ice cream, or he wants to have a cookie, but not a lot of it, not like just 2 cookies. But he needs that in order to balance the hormonal disbalance, right? And now you could say, okay, it would be good that he's not like constantly out of balance. Of course it would be good, but that's not the case. So I think it's really interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
I just observe. I understand that I don't know shit when it comes to what's going on within them.
Yeah.
I can only understand from the point of which I understand this own body, but I allow them the freedom to be able to choose. But I also am aware enough that there is some bad bacteria in the gut that calls for things when it's not needed. So I pay attention to that as well. But I'm very fluent in allowing them to make the choices that they need to make. It's all really intuitive as well. Spend enough time with them, you can tell. Like when you're with the child enough every single day, you can just tell what it is that the child wants. Like you don't even have to speak. You don't have to speak. You just know. You just know. At particular times of the day, it just lights up. So I guess it depends on the relationship you have with your child, how open you are to your child. If you're present with your child as well, that's really, really important because they crave presence. They really do. It doesn't matter if you give them, a lot of times people think attention is just sitting in the same room. No, attention is there, right there, fully acknowledging the human being sitting in front of you because that's all they want. And because they're still so connected to that divinity, to the presence, to the oneness, to the all of it. So they want that recognition, and they're able to see themselves through you and vice versa. And that I think is the most important thing, really, is that presence when it comes to children.
I agree.
There's nothing I need to teach them. Obviously there's things about survival and understanding society from a label point of view, but ultimately it's time for me to learn. It's time for me to understand how the human mechanism happens and how it grows into this being, and being able to witness patterns and the richness of their innocence. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing quite like the grace of a child, the innocence of a child. It is it brings you to tears whenever you just are in the same room with it. It's just when you're really present, and when you're super present within yourself, you can experience it as well. But you look at a child and you see it. And when people have newborns, and everyone just starts going crazy, all this new life, the smile, all of it, is the grace just emanating from this child, because they're fresh. And at some point within our growing up, we started overwriting our grace. And when you allow yourself to go back to this presence, and then you experience it within the children, and you see it within the children, and you experience it within yourself, and you're able to have that relationship. So yeah, that went on a tangent. I kind of got off the diet, but I feel presence with a child, no matter what, you'll be able to make the proper choices and or decisions that need to be made, if any choices or decisions need to be made in the particular moment when any situation happens,
Yeah.
because you're present.
I I mean the diet was just a one idea of a topic to talk, and I love the I think I think the presence go doesn't only go for children.
Oh, it goes with everything, but you're able
Everything.
to recognize it within children, and it's it's different in a sense that when you're not used to experiencing presence and grace, and you finally look at a child and you're like, whoa, so this is what this has been.
Yeah.
And then you're able to see it in everything and everyone.
Mm, I agree. That's why for me it's like very strange when people don't like children. Then
Mm.
I'm like, it's like they don't like animals and don't like children. Then I'm like very skeptical. Very.
You know, I can understand. I can understand. I can understand
I
they
can
don't
like,
like the patterns of the child.
yeah.
You know, when you're so into your own patterns, and let's say they grew up with someone who didn't like children, and they grew up with someone that didn't like children.
Of
So then it
course,
was constantly like
there was.
passed down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think it's ever really the child. I think it's the actions. And that's a big thing within how we identify people and judge people, is we think that their actions or their ideas or thoughts or any of that is them, but it's not. It's just a byproduct of a
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
state of consciousness they were in. I think that's the same thing, but it does weird me out. It's definitely an alarm. Like, ooh.
As a therapist, I totally understand what's going on. You know, I, I think it's for me sometimes it's difficult because as a therapist, I understand almost any human behavior.
Mm.
But then as a human, I'm like, nah, I don't want to deal with that shit. I'm like, no, no, no. I don't want to have any of that close. So it's really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, as a therapist, I know like you're just not capable of your nervous system is freaked out when this comes close because it's a reflection of yourself. So
Mm.
of course that makes perfect sense. But still, like when I'm looking at people like that, like when how they get stressed out, then I'm like, how can this be okay for you? Like
Mm.
to to be to be triggered by a 2-year-old?
It's actually very common. A lot of people say they don't like
No.
children because they're afraid of hurting the child or
I
doing
know.
something wrong to the child.
Yes.
And
To take responsibility,
mm,
to not be free, to not having the world centered around their own needs, and because there's a huge lack. I do understand that, but like how can you like that's the big question to me. Like I understand that this is your pattern, you know, your thing, but how can you not have the urge to change into someone that has more nerves? Like how can you not like imagine walking through life and like children and animals are stressing you out. That means your nervous system is really not in a good state. And then not figuring out like then your solution is to avoid be around children and animals instead of like, why is my nervous system so weak? Like, how can you not ask that question? But I know, Ali, I mean, I know there are a lot of people, depending on what your subscription is for. You come into life, and when your subscription is one of the Abrahamic religions, like Christianism, Judaism, Islam, that's probably it. Then the God is outside of you. and you're just like receiving whatever God is granting you. And that's a subconscious belief pattern. That's not conscious. And it's a collective one. So collectively and subconsciously, a lot of people are subscribing to I am not God. So of course, like when you're having a nervous system that is freaking out around children and animals, you don't even think that there is a possibility to change that. You I mean, it's not even a thought that could occur. A what? What's the word? Occur?
Occur,
Occur?
occur, occur.
Occur. That's not even a thought that can occur. But and then, but when you're subscribing to like one of the ancient other religions, like the Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, where God, when God is within you, and when you just have to turn inside of you in order to change something, because you are God basically, or you can find God within, then personal growth is a completely different topic, because then you can change your reality. And I think that's so fascinating and so interesting also, because I think a lot of discussions in this spiritual realm, in the new age scene that we're having, is exactly that. Like when the new age scene, they're waking up to the subscription model of like, you are God. And then there's the other part of society where they're like, God is in the heavens, and there's like, you have to live according to 10 laws, and then you're like, at the end you have one life, where whether you have several lives in the other subscription model, and then you're at the end of this one life, you're having this you're dying, and then you're coming to the accounting department, and the accounting department of life is like, so welcome to the accounting department. And then they're like, you did this well, and you didn't do this well, and you did this well, so you're a good human, go to the heavens, or nah, sorry, go to hell. Like, that's the subscription model. And the subconscious landscape of billions of people still has that subscription model in they subscribe to that. And then the new age scene is coming like, oh no, you just have to meditate and go within, and then you just practice like we do. Like, I say that all the time, just meditate. But I mean, for someone that, like, what do you meditate on? Like, on organs? Like, of course it's like, there's nothing there, just this is just a body. Like, why would you even do that? Why would you even need to do that? And I do understand this feeling of like, this is strange, like this yoga and this meditation, that's strange, because like, because it goes against the subconscious belief patterns.
Sends out fear signals.
A lot.
Ow, pain signals.
Woo, woo.
Don't do it.
Danger.
This will never work. This will
Yeah.
never work. Never in a million years. I'm not getting anything. I've been meditating forever and nothing's happening.
Yes.
Nothing's happening. I've been meditating for months, doing yoga for months, and nothing's changed. I haven't gained anything. Okay, but what did you lose?
I'm praying for months and nothing happens. I'm not granted what I want. Well, maybe that's not what you need.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Meditation was never about what I could gain. It was about what I'd lose. At first, it started off with, oh, you know, I want to be able to do things better. I want to be able to think better, act better, be better. And that was definitely not the appropriate approach. But, you know, we all recognize certain things. And I was like, well, I don't really want to gain anything. And then I recognized what I've lost. Well, I've lost the stress that I always had. I lost the thoughts of wanting to kill myself. I lost anger, constant anger, like emotional immaturity.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I
It's a
really
big
like
one. It's like if you're constantly reactive emotionally, emotional immaturity with the emotions at least. Like for me, anything happened, it was firecracker. Let's
that.
go. And then I realized the reactivity to everything,
Mm,
stress, fear, all of them, all of it just coming, just reacting. And it just changes. I lost it. And that there's certain things that when you lose them, you're like, wow, this is actually kind of nice.
yeah,
Maybe I should, enjoy life a little bit.
totally. That's why I think the step that is now happening in a collective, the it's like a step in between, and apart from religion is like that, the universities and the doctors and science in general are explaining a lot of what's happening in the physical and in the metaphysical when you're doing things like yoga and meditation and
Mm,
mindfulness and resilience. And so I think that's an amazing gain for society, that that it's not about belief systems anymore. It's not, do you believe God is within or without, or do you believe God is in heavens or you are God. We don't have to go into that subconscious landscape anymore of the people, on into the stress, because it secretes a lot of stress when you're going against what you're believing. But going over the conscious mind and like having a lot of explanations for those phenomenons. And I mean, they're like the whole mindfulness area, the whole resilience in business, the whole what else do they call those things? I read a lot of books about it's here. It's actually it's actually
quantum
my microphone is on the book. Quantum quantum philosophy, quantum
physics.
physics. They have nowadays a lot of explanations for those supernatural phenomenons,
Mm,
and how energetic fields work, why systems exist, like a family is a system, or a team in a business is a system. So I think and that's what we try to do with Ally Vision as well. We try to write articles where there is a lot of scientific proof for for personal growth. That's why I chose, by the way, to be an EMDR trauma therapist, because that it has a lot of studies with a lot of data,
mm.
like physically proven. And so I think it's really interesting to go over the mind and to explain why things are happening like they're happening, so people have an easier access to it. Like, I really like that.
I love that as well. There's a lot of people who say, spirituality is jumping into the unknown, and then science is trying to find a way to explain it.
Yeah.
So when you don't get too tied up with the wordings and the labels and all that stuff, and you actually just, you use it for the benefit of it. Well, wow, doing this reduces my blood pressure. Wow, doing this helps people sleep better. Wow, doing this helps me have more energy throughout the day. And when you have an aliveness of emotion and thoughts, and your thoughts are sweet, and your life energy and all that stuff is in alignment, you're good. You're golden. You're out. You're banging it out as a human being. And I think it's quite beautiful that science can be a part of that, and explaining it, talking about Breath of Fire, talking about, I mean, there's a lot of different, documentaries and programs where they do talk about the different, psychic abilities and what's happening there, and the quantum physicists, and using different, devices for plants to speak. And there is a whole
I
community out
love
there.
that, by the way, the sacred
Yes.
mushrooms.
Yes. It's
Oh, I
beautiful.
love that.
It's beautiful. And it's just it adds a whole nother dimension of
Totally.
the unseen and allowing it to be seen in a way that the unseen is still magical.
Yes.
Because when you take something and you make it not magical anymore, then it becomes like majority of people just sees a tree. It's just the labeled tree. It's not really it, right?
Yeah.
So the magic is still there. The experience is still there, and that's what keeps people inspired to go deeper within.
Yeah. I totally agree. What I love also is like all those, you know, all those studies about water and water intelligence, or
Yes.
the studies about when they did an MRI, a brain scan of people before and after meditation. And it really shows on the MRI how the brain is functioning differently. So like this is a good hook for like you, it's proven that it works. There's proof, there's scientific proof. And so what allows the you know our what allows our subconscious landscape this proof allows you to try new things. This proof allows to subscribe to not a religion or a religious form, but to subscribe to science and make a different experience. And that's basically all spirituality is about, to experience something new, something different from within.
Mm.
Like that's all it is. And the old ancient teachings are like you just follow that thing and then you have the result because you're making an experience. But in order to do that, you need to trust a teacher. And we in the West, we don't trust teachers. We're not in India, we're not in Tibet, we're not in, we are in the West, and we don't trust. We need proof.
Mm. Even then.
Even then. And that's also like, I don't know how it's with your clients. Oh, the sun is out, how beautiful. I don't know how it is with your clients, but um when people are coming the first time to my practice, and then they experience the first time the relief that happens in a session, or when I meet them online as well, and they first time experience the relief of in a session, that, and they feel the difference. They know how it felt at the beginning and they know how it feels at the end. Then they're like, oh wow, how did that happen? How is that possible? And it's I think that's why I always say it's a huge difference between to have a visceral experience, like a somatic experience, or just thinking in your head
Mm.
of an experience.
Oh,
That's
for
why
sure.
doing is so much better than talking about it.
Yeah. The when it's come to my journey, I realized the psychological stuff is just like the minuscule part of being human.
Yeah.
And that's not my main focus. It's definitely something that you have to recognize at any point within your journey, because if you're constantly having diarrhea thoughts, your mind just constantly going, constantly, never stopping, like your mind is sharding all the time. That's annoying. That is really annoying. And it's really about the space. Just having some space from it and recognizing that you don't have to pay attention to every thought that goes through the head, because thoughts just happen. So with the psychological part, I realized how minuscule the actual experience of life is. And when you're here, it's way different.
Yeah.
You're just here. There's no chatter. You're just here, experiencing. You're seeing things exactly as they are. You're not holding on to anything. You're allowing this moment to just be it. Um, I think the most powerful things happen there. I mean, that's where everything happens, anyways. But when you really get with that, and the thing that I notice with the clients that I work with, and I work with many different clients with many different things. I do the tarot and oracle. That ends up, giving the breaking down of cycles that need to be broken, but whatever happens, happens. However, the reading happens, the past life regression, going into past lives and recognizing certain patterns that's been pulled from the energy and the karma. And then the one-on-ones. Whenever I go into the one-on-one sessions, so the unity guidance, I don't have a direct thing that I'm going to do when I enter that meeting. Whatever happens and arises, the teaching will arise there. But there's always that sense of the breathe out. And that's all. That's it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I think we should end there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was a very nice talk.
I think it was too. I think it was a beautiful talk.
Yeah.
One of these days, we will have the podcast in either America or Switzerland. We don't know when, but it'll happen. I think it would be crazy amazing to have a huge panel of people, and we have the podcast, and we have a bunch of people, the alleys.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, we will do that definitely. I think they're crazy, a huge amount of things to come, especially now we're working on the whole people that will give the workshops now. We started with the yoga and the meditation because daily practice is really important. And now we come in with the knowledge, with the in-depth analysis, with the deep science of being human in 20 different forms, like from different angles. So you have you have the ability to find within alley vision the perception of different truths, and whatever resonates with you. What I love to have all those experts in their specific field. And yeah, and then we're starting with the lives. I cannot wait to do the lives with you. Live meditation, live podcasts, live talks. This will
Yes, live podcast. What we could have just
Yeah.
people sending in questions, even calling.
Yes.
Like, hey, what about that?
Yes.
And we'll have a whole thing going on. There's a lot of beautiful things afoot. This is a very creative time. This is a time for you to stay steady on your daily practice. Don't be too hard on yourself, and love this life and celebrate it, because you're not making it out alive. Let's have fun this week, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Have an amazing week. Bye.
Bye.